Welcome to the Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge in Oklahoma. We're planning on a 2-night, 3-day hiking trip. I've got my two sons with me. We're going to do a few trails and just see what's here in this park. We didn't get off to the best start this morning. My youngest son forgot to set his alarm. We were going to meet in Wichita Falls. He's coming in from Dallas. But we got to Wichita Falls and he was still asleep in Dallas. We ended up getting to the refuge mid-afternoon. We went to the visitor center and grabbed some maps and got some information from them. Drove around and stopped a few times to look at some of the bison roaming through the park. And then we decided we had time for one hike that first night, and we were going to do Elk Mountain. Elk Mountain is one of the more popular trails in the park from what we heard. It's only a little over a mile long with a 600-foot elevation gain. But it's a pretty rocky path, and so many people do it that there were a lot of herd paths through there. So we ended up going over a mile and a half before we got to the summit because we got off trail several times.
Go ahead and push it down.
I'll follow you then. See people over there. On the way down, same thing, we veered off trail and we ended up having to do some rock hopping to get back to the trailhead. After their hike, we drove to our campsite at Great Plains State Park about 10 miles away. We had a great spot right on the lake, right under this huge tree, and a picnic table, and we set up our tents and got ready, and we cooked dinner and just had a really pleasant evening. There were some thunderstorms in the area. In fact, we were under a tornado watch, but we were checking the maps pretty regularly, and most of the storms were quite a bit south of us, so we weren't too concerned. However, we were expecting some winds 10 to 15 miles an hour with gusts up to 25 miles an hour. Not ideal, but nothing not used to in West Texas. Winds did come up. We had 25 mile an hour gusts. That lasted for a little while, and then it just ramped up, and pretty soon we had probably sustained winds of 40 to 50 miles an hour with gusts that felt like 70. We had decided to take the tents down and head out of there and go find a hotel. And as we were loading our gear, we were running back and forth from the picnic table to our truck. Ran to the truck, threw some stuff in the back, and turned around, and the tree we had just ran under was now laying on the ground. We had missed that tree by just a few feet when it fell. We were just a few feet from it. At that point, I decided none of the gear was worth risking our lives for. We just jumped in the cars and left. We ended up driving to a hotel about 60 miles away, and we checked into a hotel at 4:30 in the morning. We slept for a few hours and then decided to get up and head back to the park to see if any of our stuff had survived. On the way back, a park ranger called me on my cell phone checking on us because they saw the damage and we weren't anywhere around. So that's a first. I've never had a park ranger call me to check on me like that. He did say that they had wind gust over 90 miles an hour that night.
That tree fell too.
We ended up recovering most of our gear. A few bent tent poles was most of the damage. I did lose an X-pad, sleeping pad. But considering what we went through, it could have been a lot worse. Driving through the park, the damage was pretty unreal. There were at least 8 or 9 trees that we counted that had fallen down. The campground had been completely full the day before, and now about a third of the sites were empty, with more people still packing up, getting ready to leave. We talked to one guy, and he said their trailer had slid 2 feet during the storm and gotten pushed sideways 2 feet. Even now I get chills thinking about how close we were to that tree when it fell. We ended up packing our stuff up and deciding to call it a trip. We were pretty worn out, pretty beat, and didn't want to spend another night there. So we never did make it back to the wildlife refuge, so we considered ourselves lucky. We ended up driving to Wichita Falls, eating lunch, and then separating because my youngest son going back to Dallas. And just as we were getting in the car, he goes, "You know, that was the scariest thing I've ever been through. But now that we're safe, man, that's going to be a cool story."